Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Movie Doctor. Are you over the superhero movie craze? Probably not. Well, good for you, because neither am I, but I'm getting to the point of getting tired. I love superheroes and superhero movies. This is not a video on the oversaturation of superhero films because it doesn't exist. Just like westerns were popular in the 60s, it's a trend of time. It's a product of time and pop culture. It's okay to be a comic nerd nowadays, so that leads to multiple comic properties to make it to the big screen. They're a great way to communicate with common folk, as some superheroes such as Spider-Man and Superman have relatively simple alter egos, but they're also a safe bet for box office successes as well. They range from popcorn film to real artsy stuff, so there's something for almost all audiences to enjoy. But again, if this video is not about the oversaturation of superhero films, what is this video about? This video is about the problem with superhero movies today. Man vs. World. Watch the third act of over half the superhero films that have come out in the past decade. A lot of them involve the protagonist saving the world at the end, and that's a problem. Because you've seen it over and over and over, the world has become quite the small threat for me as an audience member to care for. Some films, however, do try and change up the climax by having the hero save the world, but with some consequences, such as Watchmen, based off the comic book of the same name. Some films even throw in an emotional scene to separate themselves, such as Captain America: The Winter Soldier or The Dark Knight Rises. Wait, not that scene. This scene. Yeah, that's much more emotional than that.
It's the slow knife, the knife that takes its time, then slips quietly between the bones. That's the knife that cuts deepest.
And one film in particular doesn't even bother doing a massive fight scene in a city. The fucking spectacular Unbreakable by M. Night Shyamalan, who at one moment actually made great films. What I'm saying is that once the third act rolls around, no one's going to raise an eyebrow if you went to take a piss. The invisible line. There's a line with superhero films. There are two sides to this line when it comes to making a superhero film. Either you go realistic or you go over the top. Very few films pull off having both, but on both sides of that line you're going to get questioned by the audience. If it's too realistic, people are going to complain. If it's too corny, people complain. I myself am a victim of this. When Christopher Nolan took over the Batman trilogy, I was elated that we're getting a realistic take on a superhero. By the time The Dark Knight Rises came out, however, I was clamoring for a more comic booky Batman series. Not that comic booky, though. We're probably going to see that with Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman. If there's one thing I enjoyed about Man of Steel was that it had a fine, not perfect, but fine balance of realism and comic booky action. It had an incredibly fun antagonist in General Zod.
There's only one way this ends, Cal. Either you die or I do.
And the action scenes had some great blocking and CGI. The freaking love interest. I think this is the most annoying part of these films. Now, I know a lot of films abuse this plot point and character, but certain films which I think are masterpieces like Edge of Tomorrow make the actors an active part of the script's progression. This really pisses me off because I love women. They have nice voices, they have more empathy than men, and boobs! Can we edit that? Yeah. Can we get that out of the video? Yeah, thanks, editor. How useless is the love interest in every superhero film ever made? The biggest perpetrator of this crime, seriously, this character belongs in a movie jail of some sorts, is the character Mary Jane. Again, I love Kirsten Dunst, she's very pretty, but what does she do in the trilogy of Spider-Man films? She gets caught a lot and makes Spider-Man's life a living hell. She's more of a threat to Spider-Man than the actual villains, since they can get to her much easily than Spider-Man, which will eventually lead Spider-Man to them. Some films have understood this as a weakness and tried to combat it, like in Iron Man 3 when Pepper saves Tony. Even though she still got caught earlier, she is a deciding factor of the film. Same goes for the Dark Knight trilogy, which had some relatively powerful female characters that actually measured into the trilogy. Rachel's death sent Bruce Wayne into a crippling depression. Hey, I got a question for you guys. What was Natalie Portman's purpose in Thor? Think about it long and hard. done thinking? Or are you still thinking? Well, how about this? Let me ask another question. Why did Amy Adams' character have to go into Zod's ship in Man of Steel? What about that chick in X-Men Origins Wolverine? What did she do apart from get caught and die? It's such a blatant act of laziness by the screenwriters to include a character and do nothing with it. I mean, write a good character or don't write it at all. The reason I loved The Martian, both the movie and the book, is because Mark Watney was on his own. There was nothing holding him down. He had to get home because he had to get home, not because his wife or girlfriend was expecting him to come home. They didn't add a useless character to create tension for Mark Watney. I like that they didn't give me a useless character to focus on, unlike these bastards. Or sameness. Now, I'm not sure if sameness is a word, and feel free to let me know in the comments below if it's a word or not. But let's get to the point. You know how I said that superhero films aren't getting oversaturated, they're just a product of trends, like the westerns were in the 60s? I love westerns. My thesis in film school was a western. A western is a great blank canvas or starting point for a writer to add his or her story on. Now let's look at a bunch of westerns. I'm throwing these off of the top of my head, by the way. The Searchers, High Noon, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Shane, and True Grit. Now, apart from the genre and the basics of making a western, like having horses in them, what's similar about these films? Nothing. They're very different films when it comes to plot and story structure. Now let's compare to a couple of superhero films. So, Man of Steel, The Avengers, Iron Man 3, Guardians of the Galaxy, and The Dark Knight Rises. What's so similar about these films? A whole friggin' lot, if you ask me. A bad guy wants to annoy the city by threatening to blow it up. Some chick gets kidnapped and the good guy saves the day. I wonder what's going to happen at the end of Batman v Superman. Oh wait, they already told us in the trailer. Remember when the Joker said nobody panics when things go according to plan? He's right. You keep putting out these superhero films over and over and over, which are essentially the fucking same. When you do something different, people will take notice. Or as the Joker says, chaos. The studio system. Now, I don't know if I've expressed my love for Batman Begins before, but Batman Begins is one of my favorite films of all time, and it's because it's an art house flick with a disjointed and non-linear narrative. It does so much to set up why Bruce Wayne became Batman, unlike this overly simplistic piece of writing. His parents' death wasn't the only reason for his crime fighting and his set of rules. He was about to murder Joe Chill, only for someone to stop him. This leads him to realize that killing Joe Chill won't erase the other problems of Gotham, and the reveal of Liam Neeson's Henry Ducard turning out to be Ra's al Ghul has some actual shock. This film, by the way, kinda started off the big reveals in superhero films, by the way. The reason it works in Batman Begins is because the character of Liam Neeson was directly involved in Bruce Wayne's journey, unlike these people. I'm still annoyed by that Mandarin twist, by the way. It's so friggin' annoying. Batman Begins to me essentially is the Citizen Kane of superhero films. Hell, he even has a similar arc to Charles Foster Kane, where his obsessions and adamant desire to stand out from the rest of the world by doing something relevant leads him to eventually turning into a douchebag and losing a whole lot. The only difference is Kane, no, not that Kane, there you go, that Kane, actually loses, unlike Bruce Wayne, who finds himself.
I never said thank you. And you'll never have to.
You see that? There's no way any studio is going to make a film like that anymore. If I walked into the studio and said that I want to make a superhero film like Citizen Kane, chances are I'll be kicked out of the door. But if I come in and pitch a testosterone-filled action film with massive amounts of action, with tons of product placements, catching! I'm really sorry, my sound effects budget's like really low. Too quippy. This is sort of an extension of the second point I made. All the recent superhero films have had annoying and snappy dialogue. I'm all for it, because it's kinda cool to listen to and it puts a smile on my face. But it doesn't belong everywhere. There's no reason for this line.
What are you smiling about, Captain?
Nothing, sir. I just think he's kinda hot.
To be in a film that begins with a planet exploding and has scenes like this. Now, I'm alright with Star-Lord and Tony Stark with their witty and funny comebacks. I am not okay with Thor, Captain America, and even fucking Black Widow having snarky quips. Oh yeah, by the way, this is from the new Batman v Superman film.
Maybe it's Gotham City and me. We just have a bad history with freaks dressed like clowns.
Subtle, I guess. Well, at least we get this.
Tell me, do you bleed? You will.
Plot twist, he's speaking to Wonder Woman here. But yeah, pick one. If you want to be a dark superhero film, just be dark. If you want to be lighthearted, be lighthearted. I know this is a minor point, but it's annoying. Don't make superhero films. Now, what do I mean when I say that? Captain America the Winter Soldier, another one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, is not a superhero film. It is a political thriller with Captain America as the main character. Iron Man 1 is a war film with a commentary on weapons handling, with Iron Man as the main character. The Dark Knight is a neo-noir crime thriller with Batman as the lead character. And The Amazing Spider-Man is a young adult Twilight-type love story with Spider-Man as the main character. Alright, it doesn't work out for all films, but look at everything else. The main purpose of the other films is to make superhero films. When you make a film of a different genre and throw a superhero as a fish out of water character, it adds a level of freshness to the film because the protagonist is unaware of so many things he or she has to learn. The finales. Gee, I wonder who's going to win. This is in every superhero film, all of them. If there's one which doesn't commit this crime, let me know in the comments below. Gee, is Batman going to defeat Bane? Are the Avengers going to stop Loki? Is Superman going to defeat Zod? Why, yes. Was there ever any doubt? All these great filmmakers such as Christopher Nolan, Shane Black, James Gunn, Zack Snyder, and Jon Favreau. Didn't they see friggin' Die Hard? John McClane's Bloody Feet is a great progression of character and script. The screenwriters gave the protagonist a handicap, thus making you, the audience, get behind the protagonist even more. Look at him limping towards Hans. Oh, I can't wait till he drops him off a building. Not only do you want the protagonist to win even more, it makes the antagonist even more despicable. They do that in superhero films. Don't get me wrong, but it comes before the climax. One of my favorite scenes in Iron Man is when Obadiah Stane removes Tony's arc reactor and paralyzes him. It's awesome, but Tony quickly overcomes this problem in the next 5 minutes. And I'm okay with the first Iron Man movie, as it does kinda add a physical threat to Tony Stark in the final battle. Although it's not as high on stakes as it would be if Tony didn't have his arc reactor. The Dark Knight. Gee, I wonder who's going to win a fist fight between a man who's in amazing shape against a clown. Not only is there no tension in the fight scene, which is cool because the tension on the boats is the focus, the cool part about this fight is that Batman kinda does lose the fist fight as well. This should make me hate the Joker even more since he whooped my idol. But it didn't, because Batman isn't overcoming anything to beat the Joker. Oh, and if you say, but the Joker was sitting on Batman, there's some thrilling footage of grass growing that you might watch on YouTube. A 135-pound man in clown makeup sitting on you is not overwhelming. Let's look at another film, Man of Steel. Since they were terraforming the planet into Krypton, why didn't David Goyer write in the atmosphere changing to Kryptons, which Superman had trouble adjusting to earlier? It would have made for a better and more emotional fight scene. Sadly, the protagonist, in this case the superheroes fighting the bad guys, have no physical limitations to conquer in beating the bad guy. And all it does is it creates a very flat final fight scene. So yeah, we're lacking emotion in the third act of these massive tentpole superhero movies. Fix it. So yeah, that's about it, people. What's my diagnosis for superhero films? Well, don't do the stuff I just pointed out, and be willing to take more risks. Sadly, I don't believe the latter portion will be happening anytime soon. I mean, just look at the lineup of upcoming superhero films, but alas, I am an optimist. Hopefully we see something challenging in the upcoming superhero movies. People, thank you so much for watching. I'm just letting you know that any comments and shares and likes will be highly appreciated. If you enjoyed my quite grim outlook on the state of superhero films, hit that subscribe button, and if you agree with me, share this video with any other film buffs you know. Until then, remember to love yourselves, people. It's important, and sayonara.